There is a specific way in which news is constructed when the aim is not simply to inform, but to orient. This is how, in recent weeks, some American newspapers have presented what is being defined as a historic turning point: the proclamation of the first female Catholic priest in the state of Kansas. According to a report in the Kansas Reflector and reiterated by other regional media, the state's first female Catholic priest has been ordained. The title, as worded, leaves no room for nuance. It's clear, assertive, and above all, it suggests a fait accompli. But it's precisely from here that the news begins to show its cracks. The Kansas Reflector itself, in its piece on the matter, speaks of a return to the Catholic Church. It's a phrase that comes up repeatedly, even in podcasts related to the outlet. Return, however, is a challenging word, because, as the article itself admits, the protagonist had been estranged from the Church for about 20 years. A departure motivated by explicit dissent from Catholic teaching on central issues, from marriage to morality, from the role of women to the very structure of ecclesiastical authority. Again, according to the Kansas Reflector, the return does not occur through doctrinal reconciliation, but through ordination received from an unrecognized group. A return, therefore, that requires a specific condition. It's in the same article that a phrase appears that would become the linchpin of the entire narrative: Roman Catholic woman priest. The words are presented as if they indicated an official title, almost an institutional qualification. The Kansas Reflector uses them consistently, with all initial capital letters, as if they were an already existing category. Yet, as emerges when comparing this definition with canonical reality, it is a formula that finds no support either in tradition or in church documents. Its strength is not legal, but symbolic. It is a designation that creates the illusion of recognition. The emotional core of the story, as reported in both the written articles and the podcast linked to the newspaper, is the so-called call. The protagonist recounts rediscovering her interest in Catholicism late in life after the sudden death of her younger brother. It is a passage that the media reported with great emphasis, underlining the human value of mourning and the search for meaning. According to what he stated directly in the interview, it was during that period that he felt the need to do something greater. This calling, as he describes it, was internal, personal, not mediated by ecclesial discernment. The Kansas Reflector also reports that the organization that performed the ordination is primarily dedicated to ordaining women who feel called to the priesthood. It is a formula that comes back several times and which shifts the vocational criterion from the recognition of the Church to subjective experience. This is a crucial passage because it marks the breaking point with the Catholic concept of the sacrament of holy orders, which is not based on individual sentiment, but on a calling confirmed by ecclesiastical authority. In an attempt to strengthen the legitimacy of the event, the media also cited Vatican studies and commissions. The Kansas Reflector points to a report made public in previous months, presented as evidence that the question of women's ordination is still open. But a careful reading of what is actually reported reveals a different story. As explained in the same article, the Commission stated that it found no historical evidence of valid female ordinations in the Church. No attestation, no recognized precedent. The possibility of further studies is mentioned, but not as a doctrinal breakthrough, but rather as a historical exploration. Another central point of the narrative concerns apostolic succession. According to the ordaining organization and faithfully reported by the Kansas Reflector, ordinations are valid because they are part of a line of succession that traces back to the apostles. It's a thesis that's presented without question in journalistic pieces, but it immediately conflicts with Catholic teaching, which considers the validity of female ordination impossible due to the very nature of the sacrament. This isn't a modifiable disciplinary rule, but an ontological limitation. The location chosen for the ordination is also being described by the media. According to reports, the rite did not take place in a Catholic church, but in a syncretistic religious community founded in Missouri and characterized by an inclusive and non-denominational approach. This detail, reported without particular emphasis in the articles, is actually crucial. Ordination does not occur outside the Catholic Church by arbitrary exclusion, but because it cannot occur within it. The story then features a statement that sums up the protagonist's entire position. As reported in the Kansas Reflector podcast, she states that these women are still the church and that their goal is to make everyone feel welcome. It is a phrase that is repeated without critical comment, but which contains an evident contradiction. It claims membership in the church while rejecting its binding teachings. To give historical depth to the story, the media and groups in favor of female ordination also recall precedents from the 20th century. According to materials shared online by pro-ordination movements, cases from Eastern Europe during the period of communist persecution are cited. Specifically, these references include clandestine ordinations motivated by alleged pastoral need. As emerges from the same accounts, the Holy See, having learned of these facts, regularized some situations related to married men, but explicitly excluded the possibility of recognizing female ordinations. It's a passage that the media tends to simplify, but it reveals a consistent pattern. Even in extreme situations, the Church has never recognized the ordinations of women as valid. The fact that some cases have been tolerated without immediate sanction does not amount to sacramental recognition. At this point, the Kansas News appears for what it is, not an isolated event, but the latest chapter in a tension that has plagued the Church for decades. A tension between doctrine and sentiment, between sacramental structure and individual claims, between belonging and rejection of authority. As clearly emerges from the sources themselves that tell the story, the ultimate criterion is not what the Church teaches, but what the individual perceives as right. And that's why the news continues to resonate. Not because it has changed anything in the reality of the Catholic Church, but because it shows, once again, how profound the rift is between what the media presents as inclusion and what, in reality, remains incompatible with the very nature of the Catholic priesthood. What do you think? If you liked the video, comment Amen. God bless you.